Okay. Bob's here, we can start. All right, I call to order the special board meeting at 7:01 p.m. on Wednesday, the 21st of June, 2023, in the boardroom, and ask for roll call.
Mr. Brisbane?
Here.
Dr. Maharaj? Mr. Arkin?
Here.
Dr. Livingston? Mr. Brandhurst?
Here.
Mr. Costa?
Here.
Sorry. She should just got it. Yes, I'm resetting.
Just
Resetting. All right, go ahead.
Okay, our first order of business is public comment. Is there any public comment?
None via Zoom and none in person.
Okay. So our next order of business is, I don't have board docs out, but the filling of the vacant Board of Education seat and a review or a chance to hear from a number of the applicants. So I want to kind of just narrate and explain the process and where we are. Before we do so, we have we had 13 applicants for this vacancy. So we're very fortunate as a community to have the level of interest to serve our community and very qualified individuals who submitted their applications. From that, the board met and dialogued and selected 6 applicants that it wanted to hear from in advance towards filling the seat. The board believes that a diverse board with skills, backgrounds, talents is a true strength, and so we're looking to solidify our board, and we have 6 candidates that we will be hearing from this evening.
Mr. Kowski, before you get started, if I could just recognize Dr. Maharaj and Dr. Livingston just entered the Zoom.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Here.
Okay, so with that said, we have 6 candidates, and the process from here moving forward is as follows. Tonight, each of the candidates, applicants, were given a series of questions, which I will read in a moment. And they are, it's a series of 6 questions, and each of the applicants has been asked to prepare a response to that series of questions to take up to 10 minutes. The board will hear each of those applicants. If there are any clarifying questions on the specifics presented, the board members may ask those clarifying questions. There will be no new questions. It will just be on the material that is discussed. And that will conclude the presentation from the applicants. The board will then move into its closed session, and it will deliberate on the applicants and their presentations. It's the intent of the board to choose from the list of 6, 2 to 3 finalists that will go to the final round, which is scheduled for July the 13th, which I believe is a Thursday. And it coincides with our committee of the whole. At that meeting, the board will take those finalists and will have a more detailed interview with those finalists with the full intent of then doing its final deliberation, making a selection and swearing in and seating a board member in that evening. So that's the process that has been outlined and communicated to those who are involved in the process. The only other issue before I read the questions is we are going to choose the order of presentation of the six via the magic bowl here. So Lisa will read a name and our board vice president, Mr. Arkin, will pull a number out, and that will be the order in which the candidates go, one being first, six being sixth. So that's our process. So with that said, Lisa, will you please call the first name? And Mr. Arkin, you're going to open it up and read it. Only one. This is not like Halloween.
Mr. Arkin, your first name is Nancy Alexander.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexander is 5.
Next. A little more speed here.
Mr. Arkin, your next name is Audrey Williams Lee.
And Audrey Williams Lee is number 3.
Mr. Arkin, your next name is Pete Miller.
Oh, that one right there is going to cost us so good.
It's number 4.
Mr. Arkin, your next name is Leslie Stephanshaw.
Stephanie is number 1.
Mr. Arkin, your next name is Mike Gibbs.
Is number 6.
And Mr. Arkin, your last name is Rachel Keys. And
That number is 2. That's how you write it.
so that is your order for tonight.
2.
That's it. Thank you.
So what was the order? Well, I know.
Ms. Alexander is number 5.
Yeah.
Ms. Williams Lee is number 3. Mr. Miller, number 4.
Okay, I got the rest. Thank you. Okay. We have. We should have 4 in person, right? We're still missing.
Ms. Audrey Williams Lee, and I think once we get started, I'm going to see if I can text her.
Okay.
See maybe she's downstairs.
And we do have 2 applicants who are going to be communicating via Zoom. They are out of the country or
Ms.
remote.
Keys and Ms. Alexander, and they are on Zoom.
And so thank to all of the applicants for all being able to make it on this night on short order. So with that, I'm going to read the questions just in terms of format. We will, in terms of the presenters, there are 2 seats here at a table, and there's a podium. Standing or sitting, your choice. Whatever makes you more comfortable. And I will read the questions that have been presented to the applicants.
So it's Fisher.
I'm gonna read the questions and she can go in the bullpen and start warming up. Okay, the 6 questions are: number 1, why are you interested in being considered for this position? Number 2, what do you see as the top 2 to 3 issues facing this district in the next 2 years? Number 3, the Board of Education is a working board. Board members attend 2 meetings per month and must prepare through an intensive review of meeting agenda and packets. Members normally attend 1 to 3 other community meetings monthly. Board members annually also attend many other school-based activities, including student parent involvement. So the question is, do you have the personal bandwidth to prioritize the work of the Board of Education to be the most effective board member possible? What is the likelihood that you would consider running for a full 4-year term beyond filling out the remaining 2-year term, and why? That's all. Question 4, how do you feel your background and skill set will complement that of the existing Board of Education. Question number 5. For the past 6 years, equity has been a central part of this district's focus. How do you define equity? And from your perspective, how should the district implement equity? And lastly, question 6. How will you balance your own deeply held values and opinions with input from district staff, fellow board members, and diverse views from the community? And how do you make decisions? So those are the questions. Each of the applicants has had those questions since last Wednesday.
Last week.
Last week, so a week. There are no further instructions in terms of allocation of time. You have 10 minutes. We will give you a 1-minute warning. Can you provide that? Just some kind of a 1 minute to go so that you know that if you're still going, you can wrap it up.
Yeah. You do the first. Okay.
Are there any questions? And I'm also trying to see those on Zoom on the process, the questions, the procedure before we begin our work. Yep. Okay, you're okay. So, Miss Leslie Stephenstraw, you have the floor. Welcome. It's all yours.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Cool. All right, I'm starting my timer when you start your timer.
Yeah.
So first, why am I interested in this position? So I was raised by a woman who really believed that a group of people working together towards a common goal can make a change in the world. And so I think that I'm now at a point in my life where I'm seeing myself more as my mother, and I'm seeing more that I want to kind of live my life as she does. So she worked with the Black Panther Party. She worked with a goal of 3. She did a lot in her life, and she's still around. So that's one of my reasons for looking at community service. Second, I attended public school through high school. And my high school education, I very clearly see it enabled me to be successful in college. I went to Stanford University in California. I can point to the facts that I learned in school, but also the intangibles, how do you study, how do you write a paper, how do you take notes, how do you participate in a class, all of that was super important. And I got that out of my public education. And I can see now with my son, who is going into his sophomore year here at Popiara, he came home talking about this fishbowl exercise that they do. And I was like, fishbowl exercise, that I can see exactly how that would help you in college. I can see exactly how that would help you in work. And that is like, to me, exciting and helps me like think if I'm going to work for a community, it's a community that I can see I have value in, and I can help have value for my son, and then for all the other adolescents. And so that's my answer to number 1. Top 2 to 3 issues. So where I work, we have a saying, safety first, quality always, improvement continuously. So safety first. I think that there's a lot of concern about safety, and I know that there has been some work to gather community input and questions about safety. I think really focusing on action around the questions that people have, and focusing on making sure people not only are safe, but that they feel safe, because that could be 2 totally different things. And they're both extremely important, not just for the people in the building, but for the people in the community to understand. So safety, quality always, that's really around equity, because I think that the quality of the education that's being provided is really being pushed forward by the efforts and towards equity. So I think that it is important to continue to focus on that. I see in the world around us, a lot of people backtracking and getting rid of DEI programs and getting rid of programs around history for all people. So I think having a push here and letting the community know and understand that this is not something that's like ever done. It's just always part of what we have to be working towards. And 3, that improvement continuously. I think about the facilities plan and the second phase that's going forward. I did get to hear the results of the communication survey. And I think that it's important that even though that's moving forward, that there's really like a look at how do you get people to still be on board with something that's already started, right? And how at the end of it all, are you going to have a community that says that was the right thing for us to do? So those are my 3 issues. So the third question was really long, but I think it's a short answer. Like I do have just one son who I can see him leaving me already, right? He's like almost out the door. And so I do have the time, I have the inclination, and I have, I think, a skill set that would be useful for the board. And I also see this as it's a job, right? So in any position, there's a learning curve. And if you as a board are going to take your time to train me to be a good board member, then I need to make a commitment to use that for a longer period of time. So then I would say, yes, I would be looking at running for the board in the future. Question number 4, about my background and skill set. So I'm just going to say that I think that I bring a lot of diversity to the board, which right now is a little lacking, right? And that doesn't reflect our community well. And so I am mixed. I have an African-American father, a Jewish mother, and I was raised by a single mom. My mother, some point, decided that if she was going to raise 3 children, she needed to be able to support them. So when I was 8, she was 30, she went back to school, went to medical school to become an OBGYN. And so I see that there are a lot of different paths a person can take in life, right? I took a straight high school, college. She took a twisty turny. Other people take completely other paths. Maybe they don't go to college, they go into a trade. I find that there is value in all of those paths. And so I think that one of the things I bring with my diverse background is a value in all those different paths that people can take. And I think it's important that the district, and I can see that there are programs out there that respect different paths, right? Like you don't have to have gone to college to be someone that people respect in their life and they contribute to success. And then all of my work is around working with others, right? So, almost everything I do is about getting different groups of people to work together towards a common goal. And when I think about like the most extreme examples of that, because I think that's one of my strengths is being able to work with all different types of people, being able to like bring people together. I think about the day after Trump was elected, right? I went to Mississippi because I was working in Mississippi a lot back then. And I was working with someone who said, I don't know any Democrats, and I don't know anyone who voted for Hillary. And I was like, I understand from Chicago. And so we sat down, we talked about that. Do you actually? Don't you actually? We looked at the stats for who voted in his district, who voted in my district, to just have a conversation about, we're not going to like convince each other of anything, but we're just going to say, hey, the world may be a little bit bigger than what you were looking at. And I think that's part of what I would bring to the board. So question number 5 is about equity. And I'm going to say, so when I think about equity, I've got 2 little stories. So one, during the pandemic, I have a friend whose daughter has an IEP, and she had like almost like personal tutoring the whole time, right, of the pandemic. And in my head, like sometimes you're a really selfish parent and you're like, why can't my son have personal tutoring during the pandemic? Because he would be like a rocket scientist by the end. But she had it because she wanted to, what she needed in order to keep up with her grade level in order to move ahead. And so when I think about equity, it's like about community, right? Equity is about community. It's about understanding that helping an individual can help a community. And it's kind of like that saying, a rising tide raises all boats. So I think one of the difficult things around equity, but something that's super important to emphasize to people, is that it's really about how a person over there getting something you don't get helped you, right? It's not about you, it's about the whole community. The second thing, when I think about equity, I think about my background. And so, yes, my high school totally prepared me, right? Was great. But my high school was 2,000 kids, super duper diverse. And I was in a class that wound up in the end being 60 kids, not very diverse, right? So 2 Black people and like, I don't know how else, like a whole bunch of white people. And that's not necessarily wrong, but like, it really helped me, but I don't know how those other kids in my school fared. And I don't even know how they knew how to get there. And I think about like, probably most people here saw Hamilton, and Air sings about being in the room where it happens, right? And so I think, well, I was in that room, but how do people know that there's a room, and how do people know that there's happening, and how do people know that they should be there? And so for that, I think you guys here kind of took the doors off and shoved everyone in a room. That's what you did when you, with the freshman curriculum. And I think that that is a great example of like taking away barriers, right? And so for me, equity is all about using your resources to take away barriers. And so, because I have 1 minute, and like, how do you make your decisions about what to do for equity? It's got to be data-based, right? What's the data? Where are the barriers? And how do you get rid of them? And my last one, values and beliefs. You know, my values are, we're all people. We're all people. And I don't think that conflicts with anybody else's values. So I think I can use that to understand other people's viewpoints. And then decision-making is all about what are your resources and what's the data telling you to do. Okay, that's me. I'm done. Exactly 10 minutes. Thank you. Bye. Third up, I'll leave it
Anyway,
on.
no.
Oh, okay. Oh, questions.
Are there any clarifying questions before we let Leslie run from the table?
All right. I can speak really fast.
Here. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we are ready to move on to this nation, please, on the Zoom. So can we have a sound check to make sure you're there?
Greetings.
Okay, hello, good, there we go. We have a face. And volume, good?
Volume is good for me.
Okay. We're ready when you are, so
We need to turn her up a little bit for.
well, wait, yeah, give us a little more volume. This is just on our end.
All right.
Okay.
That's as far.
Okay, we're good, and please, we are ready, thank you.
Okay, I'll do my best to speak louder. So I'll begin with the first question. Why I'm interested in being considered for this position. So I'm a mother and who I'm compassionate towards all children. And my utmost desire is for every child to have opportunities for growth and learning. I'm also a Black mother of 2 Black children. And this does not mean that I'm more sympathetic towards one group of children over another, but it does influence the way I process information in a unique manner. It empowers me to advocate for underrepresented groups and to be vigilant in listening to the voices of children who are not in the majority. And although their voices are soft and are faint, their needs are significant and deserving of attention. And so I desire consideration because I want to listen and I want to meet the need. the next question with regard to the top 2 to 3 issues facing the district in the next 2 years, I can give a top 2. I believe one of the primary challenges that the board faces is the persistent achievement disparity among students. So obviously equity in and out of the classroom is a consistent item that needs to be addressed and reassessed. The second significant issue that I see is the building community trust. And I think the best way to begin that is with figuring out ways to become more transparent. I think going into phase 3, this is an opportunity to be proactive in sharing information, updates, and decisions with the community to grow that trust and confidence with the board. Do I have the personal bandwidth to do this with regard to that question? I understand that this is a commitment. It's a significant commitment. I am aware of that. I've spent some time thinking about it and discussing it with my family, and we as a family, we are aware, and I think I can still be dedicated. As far as running for a full term goes, my intention in this process is to be deliberate, and I want to work towards a long-term goal. I like to see things to their completion, and if that takes me to running for a full term, that's where it takes me. With regard to how do I feel my background skill set could complement the existing Board of Education, I think that my background as an employment attorney is a complement to the board. I am well versed in issues that affect the board's role as the employer of the superintendent and its role with the teachers union. I think this allows me to provide valuable feedback and guidance on legal matters that arise within the board's responsibility. In addition to my employment law experience, I also have previous board experience as I worked as a chief counsel for the Maywood Housing Authority. In that role, I provided legal advice and guidance to the board and their executive director. In that process, I enhanced my understanding of governance and decision-making process within a board setting. Also, throughout my career, I've developed a strong background in contract negotiation and review. It's allowed me the opportunity to, assess contractual agreements. I think with my background in employment law, previous board experience, and contract negotiation skills, I think I'm confident in contributing effectively to the board's objectives. The fifth question with regard to equity. I define equity as a process of determining fairness. So I believe it's a process. I think it's an act of something that we do. We create equity because there are many factors that can make a situation inequitable. One factor that comes to mind is historical markers that have set certain groups further back than others. Another factor could be financial access to education being limited. And I understand that there has been a focus, but it still requires, I understand there's been a focus on equity over the last 6 years, but it still requires continuous evaluation and data analysis. So the board will need to proactively develop policies that prioritize necessary support and resources to historically disadvantaged students. Recognizing and embracing diverse cultural backgrounds is key, along with equitable allocation of resources. It's also crucial for the board to engage in community engagement to gain insights and collaborate and find effective solutions. Only when we act by being open listeners can we be heard. So, that kind of moves me into the next question, which is how do I balance my own deeply held values and opinions with the input of the district staff, fellow members, and diverse views of the community? I approach the balance with the mind that I don't have all the answers. I want to be an open listener so voices can be heard. I stand by that reasoning, and I approach things with an open mind, and I try to see the other side because I want to be heard in this world. And I think that broadening your perspective is an important part of the process. And I can remain true to my core values while listening. One does not cancel out the other. With regard to how I make decisions, I weigh decisions based on the long-term factors. I also weigh the legal factors involved. In this setting, I would constantly consider the needs of the community. And all the community, not just a few. And even as my role as an employment attorney, I have to leave patients at the door and consider the situation as is. And in this process, I would constantly ask, what is the best for the child, what is best for the community, and what is best for the staff? And that's how I make my decision from there. And that's the conclusion of my answers.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any clarifying questions for patients? No, thank you very much. And we will move on. So,
You want to just move up?
yeah, so our third applicant, there's a delay in issue, and she has not yet made it. So we will go to number 4, and we will push her to the back. She's not in. There was a miscommunication. Okay. Are we okay with that? Okay. We'll give her chance. Okay, so we will go to number 4, Mr. Enoch. Welcome.
Thank you. I think I'll just go through in
It's really the mic. Just hit that button in front of your mic.
this guy.
I'll use this one.
There.
That's Patrick. I'll go in the order of the questions. So in terms of my interest in the position, we're very close. Excuse me for working on the cheat sheet here, but I want to make sure I try to touch on what I think are the key points of each question. So really close to my core is the belief that we should help each other. I believe strongly in community service, and that's exactly what I see this, position as. Oak Park has been my community for almost 30 years. I had a brief hiatus in that period, but it was, for about 10 years, my back gate was either 120 yards in that direction or 150 yards in that direction. And I've lived in other spots throughout Oak Park for 20 additional years. So, it's very much my community, and, I wish to serve. And for me, the best way to serve anything, really, whether it's an individual or a company or an organization, is to use and apply your experience and knowledge. In other words, use what you have in order to move the cause forward. And I've got, if it's counting my training, 30 years of experience in education. Very specifically applicable to this. I have 25 years experience as a high school teacher, and a lot of other things that have gone along with that. And I would just absolutely love to be able to use the experience that I've gained over all that time to be of help and be of assistance and serve my community here. I'll save the rest of that for another question. I don't want to run out of time here, but that's in a nutshell. So the top issues facing the district. This is a great question and a difficult question. But here's what I see, and I hate to restrict it to 3, but my feeling is that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a huge issue, not just for Oak Park workforce, but for especially any community and school district that considers itself sort of proudly progressive, which I feel is true of this community. So DEI issues and surrounding will likely be important for some time to come, because it's an ongoing matter. So I think, probably never again will the question be, do we have the right numbers of people from this group and that group or the other group? I think the question moving forward in this area is always going to be, how do we best meet the academic and social and emotional needs of a diverse group of learners? And again, that's an ongoing matter. So I absolutely would put that high on the list. And it's also interesting to note, I believe, that students sort of demand that this issue receive attention. It's very much in their on their radar and in their interest. I also think the achievement gap will be an issue and here and elsewhere, especially in communities and school districts that can consider themselves progressive and probably so. Anytime you have a significant difference or any kind of measurable difference between the highest performers and the lowest performers, academically in particular, that's something that has to be addressed very deliberately and very directly and very sincerely. So I would absolutely include that in that and high on my list. Third issue that I think is really important and will be an ongoing issue, again, not just particular part workforce, but the mental and emotional health and wellness issues, and that pertaining not just to students, but students, of course, but also faculty and staff, administration. So absolutely, I would include issues surrounding general health and wellness. A couple honorable mentions that I'm just going to throw in. I think he said 2 or 3. Safety and security, and I know that there's been some issues with that here recently. Always an issue. Maybe issues related to facility expansion, and also I almost hesitate to make this an honorable mention, but curriculum issues, I think, will likely be something that needs ongoing attention. Specifically, when we're talking about things like tracking and AP versus honors and placement, and even things factoring in like remedial. So those are issues that I believe will be of importance and will require good and close and proper attention. Do I have time to do the job? Yes. I do work full time, and as I said, I'm a high school teacher. At the moment, I don't have any demands. I don't have many demands beyond that on my time. So that's kind of why I view this as a great opportunity to be helpful right away. Concerning the question of would am I interested in running for this position beyond the 2-year fill-in term here? The short answer to that is no. I view this entirely as a temporary 2-year commitment to serve in the role that somebody else rightly earned. I consider myself someone who wants to help right away. I don't necessarily want to campaign, but I do want to get to work and help. So I would have no intention at this point of seeking to run for a full term. Background. Can you tell me where I'm at on time?
3:05.
Remaining?
Yes.
All right, let me just rip through this because we probably remaining. My background is, we try to rip through a laundry list of professional things, but before I even do that, I just wanted to mention that I grew up in a parallel community in a parallel school system. I was almost born, not quite, but essentially born and raised in Evanston and went to District 65 and 202 schools, almost the same community as far as issues and makeup, and a lot of the same issues that around the academic programs and at those institutions. So I'm familiar with those communities. I was familiar with this community before even had a thought in my mind about living here. So I have that experience in my background, but professionally, as I mentioned, I have, a lot of years of experience in teaching. But along with that, I've done work on, spent 6 years on the high school curriculum committee, which considered any changes that were proposed to curriculum. I spent many years on some we call them all schools council at the University of Chicago Lab Schools. So anything that affected all 4 schools that make up the lab schools ran through our committees. I was on multiple hiring committees for faculty positions. I served many years on the high school steering committee, which was responsible for what issues would be brought before the high school faculty. I was the chairperson of the health and wellness committee, which developed their first ever health and wellness curriculum. I served on a contract negotiation team. I've been a field-based supervisor for a whole lot of student teachers in Chicago State. I've been a National Association of Independent Schools evaluation team member. We visit other schools as part of their accreditation process. I've attended and chaperoned numerous
1 minute, you have 1 minute.
people of color conferences and student diversity leadership conferences in conjunction with that. I've done a lot of work with the Black Male Affinity Group that we developed at UCLS in recent years, many years of coaching experience, and really took on the equity issue. I don't know if I'll get to the last one. I define equity in 2 ways. One, and it's the most important part of it, in my opinion, is determining what each student needs to be most successful so they can achieve at the highest level of their capability. Second thing is very important as well, of course, but making a plan and deliver effort to meet the needs of each student based on that determination. That's it in a nutshell. Real quick elaboration on that, I know I'm just time here is I don't believe that equity means the exact same thing for everybody. To the contrary, I think we sort of apply equity to the extent that can be applied, with the understanding that all outcomes will not necessarily be the same.
Thank you. Are there any,
Sorry for
are there any clarifications needed for Mr. Miller? Very good, thank you so much. What we'll do here is we're gonna go right back to get it's going. So Ms. Williams-Lee, we can give you a little prep just so you understand what we're doing here from instruction. You have you'll have 10 minutes. We'll give you a minute heads up that you're near your end. And if we have any clarifying questions, then we will ask. But are you ready?
I am ready. My only question is, am I just going to talk through the questions or just talk through them in order?
At your preference.
Okay.
You have 10 minutes to
However,
address those were your prompts.
okay.
Use the 10 minutes as you feel most valuable.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to come and present. I do apologize. I'm just back from vacation. I had my dates mixed up. But relative to, I'll start with my interests in this role. I think that's a really important piece. And it really starts with my passion for education and learning. I am a huge proponent of public schools. I see schools as being very important in serving the interests of all children and ensuring that all children have an opportunity to reach their potential. They build community, they bring people together. When I think back on my own life, the impact of schools and teachers, really, when you come to a core marginalized community, they can make a huge difference. And we live in a community that is very diverse, and we have students from all over. So we have a community that's seen as affluent, but we have a lot of students who may come to our district or come to our school at a certain point in time, and being able to be in an environment where they can be successful is why I want to be a part of this. I've been engaged in my community throughout my life, and it's very important to me. And when I think about what we do here at Oak Park, I'm a 23-year resident, and I've been involved in District 200 and District 97. I have two sons, and throughout the school year, I've stayed involved. And the reason I've done that is that I want our high school to be very vibrant. I want it to be radically inclusive. I want it to be excellent. And being able to be on the school board, I see it as an opportunity to contribute to help make that happen. When I think about our school and the issues that are facing the district, the top one for me is really around the mental health crisis that we're facing with our teens in our country. So there's data from the CDC, there's other reports. I work for Rural Children's Hospital, and I see the impact of behavioral health on the children that come to our hospital. The adolescents are much more acute. It's much more of a challenge. And there's recent data from the CDC probably about a year and a half ago showing that for our LGBTQ plus students, for our female students, and for our racially and ethnically diverse students, they're all seeing a huge rise in mental health issues. And suicide, particularly amongst Black students, is rising at a higher rate than any other group. So when we think about the importance of how do we help support all our students to be successful, how we help our teachers, how we help our administrators, and how we help our students deal with that issue, for me, it's something that is emerging and facing us, and it's going to be very important for us in the years to come. Another piece for me is looking at the impact of COVID. Right now, we don't know what that's going to mean long term from a learning academic perspective. That definitely exacerbated what we see was happening from the mental health standpoint for kids. But just sort of understanding those challenges and what it might mean to our district to have to deal with them are two of the issues I see as being emerging within D97. Moving to just the question of just being a working board. And I know how much time it takes. I actually reached out to a board member here as well as a board member who's on D97 that I'm first with, and I understand the commitment. If I was elected for the role, I would absolutely make the time. For me, that would mean I'd give up some things that I'm doing. But my passion for what this district does and what this school does is such that I'm willing to give up what I need to give up in order to be able to make this possible. In terms of what the future looks like from a running, I can't give you a definitive answer on that. I think I'd like to, but I don't quite yet know what's involved. I mean, I know what I've read, I know what I've seen, but in terms of what the experience would be like, that's what I don't know. So I would say that I would think I'd like to go beyond these 2 years, but it would really depend on the experience and like everything, things come up, what may be happening in my life and what's happening to the school and things like that. But I have given a lot of thought of how would I make this possible, and I don't make commitments that I can't keep. And this is one that I see as being really important. And looking at the background of the current members of the board, it's a really good mix of backgrounds. I mean, I've seen backgrounds from consulting to business owners, attorney, educator, as well as seeing just the different experiences that everyone brings to the board. What I think I could bring another element and another dimension to that experience is that I worked in corporate and nonprofits most of my life, primarily corporate. I worked in all aspects of human resources, issues like succession planning and compensation and engagement are things I'm very familiar with. I've also led teams that do corporate social responsibility, philanthropy, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I have a broad perspective around those different elements that you need for organizations to work well. I also had the opportunity, to work in a role where people aren't always happy with my decisions. People don't always perhaps like where I land. And so being able to engage people who have different perspectives, but also be very clear on priorities and be very clear about what needs to be done and why, and being able to manage through that is something that I have quite a bit of experience doing. And I also say I bring the perspective of being a mom. I have two sons, I have two Black sons, and one graduated from OPRF, one is at OPRF right now. And they're on very different ends of the spectrum. One honors, one IEP. And so I had the opportunity to experience the school from a couple of different dimensions and really how the school responds to what the needs of both my kids have been. Is what I see as being at the heart of equity. And so when I think about equity and the definition, for me, that's really about providing what's needed. And I'm sure you've heard that, but it's providing what the students need to be successful. But it's also about how do you identify and remove barriers that stop you from being able to do that. And when I think back to my time being involved in high school, my older son was here, I remember the decision to extend AP courses and to extend AP courses to students who were not on the honors track. And some parents took that as a personal affront and took it as we were watering down AP, but you have to pass the test, so it wasn't watered down. It was great to see at the end of that first year how there was no statistical difference between students who had been on the honors track and those who aren't. There were students who had the ability to do it, they were supported, they had lots of resources in their teachers, and in the end, the students achieved what they were capable of achieving. And I love the fact that we are actually doing that as a school. And I think about when I first got involved in the school, over 8 years ago now, what we've done in terms of equity and inclusion and what we've done to really drive and think differently has been quite a lot. I was on the site looking at our strategic plan, looking at the focus on racial equity, as well as looking at, we set up the office, for equity and student success. And bringing in that vision and bringing in that focus and those programs and support, I think are all really, really important. And it's something I would encourage the district to continue doing and continue focusing on. I think the new freshman curriculum is something that's much needed. And I'm sure that there's lots of feedback about it, but it's also something that I believe will help students be able to achieve their potential. My only suggestion, and I couldn't tell this from looking at the information on the side, would be, this is really hard change. So how do we make sure that the narrative that's created around this and the frequency with which that is shared and how that gets out there and the results are really well known? Because I couldn't tell on the site whether the results were shown from 21, 22 school year, if that's because they're ongoing or if that's just because they haven't been updated. And we have a lot of information, but how we share that information succinctly and how we use that information to make sure that we're getting out what needs to be gotten out on this issue, I think is really, really important. So bringing others along, it isn't always about facts and numbers. It's my experience. It's a lot about emotion. It's a lot about people feeling heard and feeling that, that their voices are understood. And sometimes you can't even get through to people with the facts until they feel that you connect with them from an emotional perspective. And so thinking of how do we bring that to how we communicate and share information and continue to share results will be important. And then finally, in terms of from district staff and diverse views, as I said, I work in a field where people don't agree with me a lot, but two basic values for me are respect and transparency. And respect means you're always listening to people, you're considering other points of view, you may not always agree, but you can come to a good conclusion. And transparency means that you're very open and honest about how and why. And so I may not agree with the decision, but there's no secret about how I got there. And I find that working with those two are very helpful. And when I think about how I make decisions, it really is listening, gathering all the information, gathering perspective, and going from there. And so that's what I want to share.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any clarification needed? Awesome. Thank you so much. And we will move on. We will go to the screen here in a minute. Miss Alexander, if we can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, we can
Can
see
you hear me?
We can see you, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Excellent. There's a little echoing because we're broadcasting this over thousands of miles. I'm actually at sea right now, but yes, I can hear you. When does my 10 minutes start? Right now?
It starts when you utter your next word. Okay.
All right. First
Thank
of all,
you.
thank you for the opportunity to interview with the board. I don't envy the choice that the board has to make. All of the candidates bring very needed skills and talents to the board. So it's going to be a difficult choice, no matter what you all decide to do. I'm interested in this position for several reasons. One, Oak Park River Forest High School as an institution anchors our property values. And as a taxpayer, I believe that it is my civic duty to protect those values by assuring that this school district is well managed. I also have 32 years of public school experience at many levels. I was a classroom teacher, middle school, for 32 years. I have done contract negotiations with the union, 2 of them. I have been an administrator. I have been a department chair. I have seen both sides of the school system. I know school systems and I know how they work. Another reason I want to be considered for this position is that I am finally retired from those 32 years of teaching, and I finally have the time to devote to being a school board member, because I know that it takes way more time than I think it already takes. So, but I have that time, and I would like to give it to the school board. I also put 2 kids through Oak Park River Forest High School, 2 African-American children, and we have had our share of issues in the past with Oak Park River Forest High School, which will just steals me for what some parents and some students are going through. I have also been a substitute teacher at Oak Park River Forest High School for the last 3 years. And one thing I can say about that experience is that I have gotten to know the student body, its diversity, its issues, not as well as a teacher, because substitutes don't do that. But anyway, it is my community's institution, and I need to pay my 32 years of public school experience forward. And so I really hope to be able to do that. I see the top 3 issues facing this district in the next 2 years as being building the new PE wing. The Project Imagine, phase 2 is finally going to be started this year. I'm very excited about that. I have toured the PE facilities several times, and I have subbed in the PE department, and the PE wing really needs to be done, particularly since this building anchors our property values. And in order to remain competitive and to continue to attract people to move here to buy our property when we are done with them, we need to make sure that we have a first-class, top-notch school. And building that PE wing will go a long way to assuring that. Another issue that I consider importantly facing the district in the next couple of years is the issue of equity, of course. Equity, and I will define that here, even though it is one of the later questions. I see equity as giving individual students what they need in order to be successful. And I really would like to keep that as broad as possible, that definition as broad as possible, particularly because equity has been a stated policy goal of this board since 1975. And it has been amended 6 times, lastly in 2013, and that was before the America to Me documentary was released. Okay, I'm doing this on my cell phone, and I'm trying to monitor the time and monitor a whole lot of things right here. How do we implement equity in District 200? Well, first we start with an inventory, of course. This has been done. This has been done repeatedly, that inventory. Jess Stovall did it as recently as 2014 for the district, and came up with a protocol. She borrowed a protocol from New Zealand called WOVEN, which stands for with an objective view, the education debt narrows. I'm not sure that was actually implemented, even though the assistant superintendent for curriculum at the time, Phil Prail, endorsed it. But what I do know about Jess Stovill's attempt to implement equity at a district level in District 200 is that I don't think she got a lot of buy-in, and she wound up leaving the very next school year. A tremendous loss, by the way, for District 200. Equity, in order to make equity successful, we would need to get buy-in from white families. And there is a tremendous fear of changing a system that is working for them at the expense of everybody else. Equity is not a zero-sum process. And we need to get people to stop seeing it as a zero-sum game. We all benefit when students do well. We all benefit when all students do well. We also need to hire and retain more teachers of color. Losing Jess Stovall and Shayla Holland, who was an assistant principal also that year, was a tremendous loss to Oak Park River Forest High School. And we also need to convince more white teachers of the value of equity, because it is in classrooms where most of the inequitable damage is done to students. What's the next question? Yes, I do have the personal bandwidth to prioritize the work of the Board of Education. I'm highly organized. I've been a classroom teacher for 32 years, dealing with students, parents, administrators, community members. And it is quite likely that I would run for a term when this 2-year term is finished, because it would be a waste of resources, I feel, to train me or anybody else and invest in me if I did not run in 2 years. Why waste the experience of 2 years? I'm about paying forward my experience and my talents. Okay, public school saved me. And I feel very strongly about making public school in my community as strong as possible. Next question. My background and skill set complementing the existing Board of Education. Well, I have experience with educational unions. I am still a member of the IEA, retired, but I have been on 2 negotiations teams. I have dealt with the National Labor Relations Board. I have dealt with interest-based bargaining. I understand how school systems work, and I understand specifically how District 200 works. And I believe that putting me on the board will
One
help
minute, 1 minute.
make 1 minute? Okay.
Yes, 1 minute.
Help make the board more representative of the community, the communities, because it's 2 communities. Equity, I've already defined. I think I've talked about equity. How would I balance my own deeply held values and opinions? Well, I will represent 2 communities and not any one specific constituency. I want to make the board more reflective of those communities. In order to do that, I would need to remember how to listen to everybody, to do research, to remember that I would be one of 7 members and that I cannot speak for the board by myself. Only the president can speak for the board. Not to judge anybody's opinion or experience. Just because it's not my personal experience, that doesn't negate your experience or your feelings. in terms of decision-making, I believe in informed decision. And that ends my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any, I'm looking. I don't see hands, so thank you so much for your time, and we will move on to our our sixth minute, Mr. Mike Gibbs. Yes.
What did we do before we had these things, right?
Survived quite well.
In the class. The floor is yours when you want to start.
Go. I'm Mike Gibbs. Thank you all for your consideration and for all the other candidates and their applications. I want to start by congratulating the boys volleyball, girls softball, and girls soccer teams, all getting third place in state in their respective endeavors. With my union, I'll go right into the questions. Why am I interested? With my unique life experiences as an alumni, parent of twin graduates, one at Marquette, one now at West Point, Booster Club president, 10 years, River Forest Village trustee, IHSA official with construction, mechanical, and municipal inspection expertise. I feel I can contribute to the success of District 200 on day one. Issues. First and foremost, number one issue should always be the quest to fulfill the mission statement of Oak Park and River Forest High School. To provide a dynamic, supportive learning environment that cultivate knowledge, skills, and character and strives for equity and excellence for all students. Second of that answer, public relations has and continues to be troublesome. District 200 seems perpetually on the defensive in the realm of public opinion. While this situation may seem unimportant to some, it makes the duties of the board much more difficult. As your own recent survey showed, the overwhelming majority of the people in the communities only know what the Wednesday Journal tells them about what's happening at the high school. For example, in recent history, Monica Sheehan was the face of the opposition to phase 2. I don't know who the face was for the high school. In my opinion, the high school was not equally portrayed in the media. The high school was constantly reacting to the opposition's claim, true or not. This must change. Perception of the high school becomes a reality for most. Unless the board actively drives our perspective in the community, we will continue to be taken for a ride. The two major infrastructure projects will be front and center for the next 2 years. The track. I've been a track and field official for the IHSA, the NCAA, and USA Track and Field for 38 years. I challenge anyone in the Oak Park River Forest community to their knowledge of what this facility should be or what it should provide the community. Phase 2 will have an impact on many generations of future Huskies. The District 200 board has an obligation to get this right. From planning to contracting to constructing, the board will be asked to make many decisions and hear a great deal of recommendations from many different sources. My knowledge in this field will be beneficial. Members of the District 200 board have and will sign on for personal sacrifice to contribute for the greater good. I will not ask for consideration I would not ask for consideration if I was not willing or prepared to perform all the duties expected. I feel it is not only about meetings, but school events should be attended as well. Performing arts, athletics, open houses are important showcases for knowledge acquisition and support of all things Husky. I did it as a Husky Booster president, and I look forward to that opportunity again. My focus is on filling the vacancy for the next 2 years and the work involved with that position. Should my fellow board members and the Oak Park River Forest community feel I would be beneficial for continued service, I would not be opposed to presenting myself to the electorate for a full term. Fourth question, background. A resume does not paint a complete picture of a person's experience. It is the passion that person shows in their activities that defines that individual. First 29 years of my life, I lived at Euclid and Pleasant in Oak Park. For the next 32 years, my married life with my wife Sally in River Forest. I graduated from Oak Park in 1980, graduated from Loris College in Dubuque, Iowa in 1984 with a business degree, with a 4-year track letterman and a track national qualifier. I was the Husky Booster Club president for 1999 to 2009. Proud to say that I wrote the check that lit the stadium. Village trustee for River Forest for 2 terms. I've worked for Anderson Elevator since 1984. Nationally certified and licensed elevator inspector, a member of the National Association of Elevator Safety Authorities, the governing body of the codes, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. As I stated in answer 1, my life experiences may make me uniquely qualified to assist District 200 with business, construction, government, and Oak Park River Forest High School institutional knowledge and the decision-making that will be a constant challenge for the board. Each member of the board should complement the collective whole. Equity versus equality is the acknowledgement that while students may be provided equal resources, some students may have different starting points from which success may be difficult to achieve. I think the board should implement any equity programs through more individualistic ways versus more broad stroke approaches. Generalizations are rarely a good thing. Groups are good to join, but most people, students, especially when I was in school, don't usually excel when they're simply put into a group. I will be one member with the equal voice as the others. My opinions or values will guide me, not control me. I feel that a person's values are accumulated over life's experiences. I look forward to constructive discussions with the board, with my point of view being offered at the table. During the discussion-making process, I will endeavor to acquire as much information on a given topic that I can. Community input is needed, and I will rely heavily on district staff and my fellow board members' expertise, as I hope they will do with my input. I will offer this diverse perspective to the board. Diversity, as I define it, is diversity of thought. But once a decision is made, I am a team player. I will do anything in my power to achieve the goals as set forth by the board. After a vote is taken is not the time for individuality. Every decision that is to be made by a simple guide for me. I will always vote for what I believe to be the best possible choice for the success of Oak Park and River Forest High School. I will do my best to answer that question every time I vote. That's it. I write things down so I don't ramble. So there you go.
Thank you.
Don't correct my spelling.
Excellent. Any clarifications? Excellent. So
I wrote them down.
So excellent. So that concludes the public session. Again, I want to thank each of our applicants for your preparation, for your time and your words. As we stated earlier, what will happen now is the board we're going to go into a closed session dialogue to talk about what we've heard, and our job from this is to move to who we feel would be the best representative for us and narrow it down to 2 to 3 candidates. Our goal is to make that decision some point this evening. So that we will then get back to each of the 6 who have presented before us. I would say by tomorrow, we will have that. And then, as mentioned earlier, we will schedule the week of the 13th of July, the 13th will be the final meeting with the board to make our determination. So that's the process, and we will now adjourn the open session. We have to go into we have to go into closed session, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going live, guys.
Where was she at? One was on the ship.
One was in the ship and one was in Ghana.
And what time in Ghana? Ghana.
Go Tom.
I move that we're an open meetings.
Yes.
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.